A mysterious wolf was carrying food to a secluded cabin deep in the forest. For days, no one could understand the reason behind this unusual behavior, but when they decided to investigate, what they found inside changed everything. The revelation is breathtaking. In the misty dawn of White Mountain National Forest, New Hampshire, Forest Ranger Ethan Campbell stood motionless, his experienced eyes fixed on an unusual sight. A large gray wolf, its movements deliberate and precise, carried small pieces of food through the morning fog. This wasn't typical wolf behavior, and Ethan knew it. After 15 years of patrolling these woods, he had developed an almost supernatural ability to sense when something was amiss in his forest. If this story caught your interest, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give it a like. Let us know which city you're watching us from. Stay tuned. The wolf's pattern had caught his attention weeks ago. Every morning, like clockwork, it would appear with various food items. Berries, small game, and occasionally even packaged foods that must have been scavenged from campgrounds. But it was the destination that intrigued Ethan most. An old cabin deep in the heart of the forest, supposedly abandoned for years. Through his binoculars, Ethan observed the wolf's methodical routine. The creature moved with an almost human-like purpose, carefully selecting its path and checking its surroundings before approaching the cabin. This wasn't just animal instinct. There was intelligence behind these actions, a calculated precision that defied natural behavior. The cabin itself stood like a forgotten memory among the towering pines. Its wooden walls, weathered by countless seasons, held secrets that seemed to call out to Ethan. The wolf would disappear inside for hours before emerging again, a pattern that challenged everything Ethan knew about wild animals. As he documented the wolf's behavior in his ranger's log, Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that he was witnessing something extraordinary. The rational part of his mind tried to dismiss it as perhaps a wolf that had somehow been domesticated and abandoned, but his instincts told him there was more to this story. One particularly foggy morning, Ethan decided to move closer to the cabin after the wolf had left. The air was thick with moisture, and the forest seemed to hold its breath as he approached. Near the cabin's entrance, he found something that made his heart race. Small footprints in the mud. Definitely human, definitely fresh, and definitely belonging to a child. The discovery sent his mind racing with possibilities, each more concerning than the last. He knew he needed help, not just any help, but someone who could understand the complexity of what he was observing. That evening, in his small ranger station office, Ethan made a call that would change everything. Dr. Sarah Whitman's reputation preceded her. As a leading wolf behavior expert at the University of Vermont, she had published groundbreaking research on wolf intelligence and social structures. When Ethan described what he had been witnessing, the usual academic skepticism in her voice gave way to genuine intrigue. "This behavior pattern," Sarah said over the phone, her excitement barely contained, "it's unprecedented. A wolf acting as a provider, returning to the same location consistently, showing signs of advanced problem solving. I need to see this for myself." They arranged to meet the following morning. As Ethan prepared for bed that night, the wolf's haunting howl echoed through the forest, somehow different from any he had heard before. It carried a note of protection, of purpose, as if the creature was announcing its vigilance to the world. In his small cabin near the ranger station, Ethan spent the night reviewing his notes and preparing for Sarah's arrival. The photographs he had taken showed the wolf's distinct features, a unique grey coat with unusual markings he had never seen before, and eyes that seemed to hold an almost human-like awareness. As dawn approached, Ethan stood by his window, watching the forest come alive with the first light. The mystery of the wolf and the cabin pulled at him like a physical force. Tomorrow, with Sarah's help, they would begin to unravel a story that he sensed would challenge everything they thought they knew about the relationship between humans and animals. The morning fog rolled in, thick and mysterious, as if nature itself was trying to protect whatever secrets lay hidden in that old cabin. Ethan checked his gear one last time, knowing that in a few hours, he and Sarah would begin an investigation that would lead them down a path neither of them could have imagined. The early morning light filtered through the trees as Sarah Whitman's research vehicle pulled up to the ranger station. Her reputation for methodical observation and groundbreaking work with wolf behavior made her the perfect partner for this investigation. As she stepped out of her car, her keen eyes already scanning the forest's edge, Ethan could see why she was considered one of the leading experts in her field. "Show me everything you've documented," she said, skipping formal pleasantries. Her intensity matched the urgency of the situation. Ethan spread his observation logs across the station's wooden table, along with photographs he'd taken of the wolf and its unusual behavior patterns. Sarah's expression shifted from professional interest to fascination as she examined the images. "These markings," she murmured, pointing to distinct patterns in the wolf's fur. "They're unlike anything I've seen in natural wolf populations. And you say its behavior is almost methodical?" "Like it's following a trained routine," Ethan confirmed, leading her toward the trail that would take them to the cabin. "But there's more. Yesterday I found child-sized footprints near the cabin entrance. The forest seemed to close in around them as they made their way deeper into its heart." Sarah maintained a running commentary on wolf behavior, explaining how unprecedented this situation was. "Wolves are intelligent social creatures," she explained, ducking under a low-hanging branch. "But this level of systematic behavior, especially around human structures, it's beyond anything in current research." As they approached the cabin, both fell silent. The old structure stood before them, its weathered walls holding secrets they were about to discover. Sarah's trained eye caught immediate signs that set off professional alarms. The entrance area showed signs of regular use, despite the cabin's supposedly abandoned status. "Wait," Sarah whispered, holding up her hand. The sound of movement came from inside the cabin. The wolf had returned, and through the grimy window they could see its massive form moving with purpose through the interior space. But it wasn't alone. Approaching with careful steps, they reached the cabin's entrance. Sarah's breath caught as she observed the scene through a gap in the wooden door. The wolf wasn't just moving randomly. It was arranging items, pushing things into place with its snout, creating what appeared to be an organized living space. Then they saw her, a small figure emerging from the shadows. A young girl, no more than 5 years old, moved with complete comfort around the massive predator. Her movements were sure and unafraid, as if the wolf was nothing more than a familiar family pet. "Impossible," Sarah breathed, her academic mindset struggling to process what she was seeing. The girl, despite her apparent isolation, appeared healthy and well cared for. Her clothes, though worn, were clean, and her movements showed no signs of distress or fear. When Ethan shifted his weight, causing a floorboard to creak, everything changed in an instant. The wolf's head snapped toward the door, its posture transforming from gentle companion to fierce protector. The girl disappeared into the shadows with practiced ease, while the wolf positioned itself between her and the perceived threat. "Don't move," Sarah whispered to Ethan, her years of experience with wolf behavior taking over. Any sudden movement now could be interpreted as aggressive. The tension in the air was palpable as the wolf's low growl filled the space. The girl's voice, when it came, was barely audible but clear. "Max, wait." The wolf's posture shifted slightly, though it maintained its protective stance. It was the first confirmation that the girl could speak, and more importantly, that she had some form of control over the wolf. Sarah, displaying the calm confidence that had served her well in years of field research, slowly lowered herself to appear less threatening. "Hello," she called softly. "We're not here to hurt you. We just want to make sure you're safe." The girl remained hidden, but her voice came again, stronger this time. "Max protects me. He always has." The wolf, Max, maintained his position, but his growl subsided to a watchful silence. As they stood in this tense tableau, Ethan noticed something that made his skin prickle. On a small table near the window, partially covered by old papers, sat an ancient radio. Its presence seemed oddly out of place in this seemingly primitive setting, and something about it nagged at the edge of his consciousness. The morning light streaming through the dirty windows illuminated swirling dust motes, creating an almost ethereal atmosphere. In this strange light, the scene before them seemed to blur the lines between reality and fantasy. A young girl, a protective wolf, and a mysterious cabin holding secrets that were only beginning to surface. The tension in the cabin slowly began to ease as Sarah continued to speak in soft, reassuring tones. Her expertise with wild animals was evident in every careful movement she made. The girl, who had introduced herself as Lily, remained partially hidden behind a weathered bookshelf, but her curiosity seemed to be winning over her fear. "Lily," Sarah said gently, "how long have you been here with Max?" She kept her voice steady and calm, while Ethan remained completely still, allowing Sarah to take the lead in this delicate situation. The girl's response was hesitant, her voice carrying an unusual maturity for her age. "Max finds food. He keeps me safe." Her hand rested on the wolf's fur with familiar ease, and the animal's protective stance softened slightly at her touch. While Sarah carefully built rapport with Lily, Ethan's attention was drawn to the old radio he had spotted earlier. Something about its presence felt significant. It wasn't the kind of equipment one would expect to find in an abandoned cabin. It looked military-grade, despite its aged appearance. As if reading his thoughts, the radio suddenly crackled to life, emitting bursts of static that made everyone in the cabin freeze. Through the interference, fragments of a transmission cut through. "Coordinates confirmed, lost assets, priority retrieval." The effect on Lily was immediate and alarming. She pressed herself closer to Max, her small frame trembling. The wolf's response was equally telling. His ears pricked forward, and a low rumble began in his chest, but this time it wasn't directed at Sarah or Ethan. His attention was focused outside the cabin. Sarah, reading the sudden shift in atmosphere, slowly moved closer to Lily. "It's okay," she soothed. "You're safe here." But even as she spoke, Ethan noticed something that made his ranger instincts flare. Fresh tire tracks visible through the cabin's grimy window, tracks that hadn't been there during their approach. The radio crackled again, this time with clearer coordinates that Ethan recognized as points within the surrounding forest. He quickly jotted them down in his ranger's notebook, his mind racing with possibilities. The transmission patterns weren't random, they seemed to be part of a coordinated search grid. As Sarah continued to gain Lily's trust, more details of the girl's unusual situation emerged. Her answers were precise but limited, as if she'd been carefully taught what she could and couldn't say. When asked about her parents, she would only respond with, "They told me to stay hidden until it's safe." The way she said it suggested these weren't just the words of frightened parents. It sounded more like instructions, protocol. The cabin, upon closer inspection, revealed more puzzling elements. The food stores were methodically organized, with military-style ration packets mixed in with the food Max had gathered. Childish drawings scattered across one wall showed recurring images: men in uniform, a helicopter, and what appeared to be laboratory settings rendered in crayon. Ethan's examination of the cabin's exterior revealed more tire tracks and footprints, all recent. Someone else was interested in this location, and they were getting closer. When he returned inside, he found Sarah examining some strange markings on Max's fur that looked almost like surgical scars. "These aren't from natural causes," Sarah whispered to Ethan when Lily was distracted. "They're too precise, too symmetrical. Someone has performed some kind of procedure on this wolf." Her scientific curiosity was tempered by growing concern about the implications of their discoveries. As the afternoon light began to fade, they made a decision that would alter the course of their investigation. They couldn't leave Lily alone in the cabin, not with evidence mounting that others were searching for her. But they also couldn't simply take her away. Max's protective behavior made it clear that any attempt to separate them would be met with fierce resistance. The radio suddenly burst to life again, this time with a transmission that made their blood run cold. "Asset location narrowed. All units converge on Grid Sector 7. Ethan knew they were in Sector 7 of the forest grid. Sarah exchanged a meaningful look with Ethan before turning to Lily. "We need to know the truth about who's looking for you," she said gently. "We want to help, but we need to understand what's happening." Lily's response was cryptic but chilling. "The White Room people. They want their experiment back." She hugged Max tighter, and the wolf's eyes seemed to hold an almost human understanding of the gravity of their situation. As darkness began to creep into the forest, the group inside the cabin faced a critical decision. The sounds of vehicles in the distance made it clear that time was running out. Whatever secrets Lily and Max held, whatever experiments had led to their unusual bond, they needed to act fast to protect them both. The evening shadows lengthened across the cabin floor as Sarah and Ethan worked quickly to understand their situation. The sound of distant vehicles had faded, but the tension in the air remained palpable. Lily sat in a corner with Max, both watching intently as the adults examined the cabin more thoroughly. Sarah's scientific mind was racing, trying to piece together the puzzle before them. The wolf's behavior defied everything she knew about animal psychology. Max wasn't just protective, he demonstrated problem-solving abilities far beyond normal canine intelligence. She observed as he methodically checked the cabin's perimeter, moving with almost tactical precision. "We need to secure the area," Ethan whispered to Sarah, his ranger training taking over. As he moved an old rug to create a better vantage point near the window, his boot caught on something that made a hollow sound. Both adults froze, exchanging glances. Lily's reaction was immediate but unexpected. Instead of showing fear, she displayed a knowing look beyond her years. "The safe place," she said softly, rising from her corner. Max moved with her, helping her pull back the rug with his snout, revealing a wooden hatch set into the floor. The discovery of the trapdoor changed everything. Beneath it lay a carefully constructed bunker, its contents telling a story more complex than they could have imagined. Military-grade supplies lined the shelves, preserved food, water, emergency medical kits, and most importantly, documents. Lots of them. "Look at this," Sarah breathed, carefully examining papers that detailed something called Project Symphony. The documents were heavily redacted, but what remained readable painted a fascinating and disturbing picture. There were references to advanced biological testing, enhancement protocols, and something called cross-species neural synchronization. Ethan found detailed maps of the forest, marked with locations they recognized, including the cabin itself. But it was a photograph that caught his attention most, a smiling couple in laboratory coats holding a younger Lily. The image was paperclipped to a file labeled Primary Subjects, Phase 3. As they explored the bunker, Lily became more animated, pointing to various items and sharing fragments of memories. "Mommy and Daddy worked in the Bright Place," she explained, touching the photograph. "They said Max and I were special, that we could help people understand." Sarah's examination of the documents revealed more about the nature of the experiment. "This is extraordinary," she whispered to Ethan. "They were working on enhancing cognitive connections between humans and animals. But something went wrong, or maybe too right." The bunker also contained video recordings, but without proper equipment to view them, they remained a mystery. What they did find were notebooks filled with observations about Lily and Max's progress. The entries spoke of unprecedented success in bilateral communication and spontaneous development of protective behaviors. As they pieced together the information, the radio above crackled to life again. This time, the transmission was clearer. "Base, this is recovery team. Signs of recent activity confirmed. Proceeding with containment protocol." The immediacy of the threat became clear, but so did something else. They weren't the only ones watching over Lily and Max. Fresh supplies in the bunker suggested that someone had been maintaining it, keeping the pair safe from the shadows. A notebook entry dated just weeks ago caught Sarah's attention. The original project was never about weapons or control. It was about understanding, about bridging the gap between species. "We didn't expect the depth of the connection, the purity of their bond. They must be protected at all costs." The sound of a twig snapping outside brought them all to attention. Max's ears perked up, but surprisingly he didn't growl. Instead, he moved to the trapdoor entrance, his posture suggesting recognition rather than threat. Lily smiled, her first genuine smile since they'd arrived. "The helpers are here," she said confidently. "They always come when the others are close." As if on cue, a soft knock echoed through the cabin, 3 taps followed by 2 more. A pattern, a signal. Ethan and Sarah looked at each other, realizing they had stumbled into something far larger than a simple case of a lost child and her unusual guardian. The coded knock at the door brought a moment of paralysis. Ethan's hand instinctively moved toward his Ranger radio, but Lily's calm demeanor made him hesitate. Max's relaxed posture suggested these visitors were indeed familiar, possibly the same people who had been maintaining the bunker's supplies. Sarah watched in amazement as Lily performed a series of hand signals toward Max, who responded by moving to a specific position near the door. The level of communication between them was remarkable, not just basic commands, but complex coordinated actions. When the door finally opened, A man stepped inside with practiced stealth. His movements were precise, military-trained, but his expression softened at the sight of Lily. "Good evening, Professor Whitman," he said, surprising Sarah with his knowledge of her identity. "I'm James. We've been expecting you both to find this place eventually." James wasn't alone. A woman followed him inside, carrying a backpack full of fresh supplies. She introduced herself as Dr. Chen, and her expertise became immediately apparent as she began examining Max with a professional eye, checking the marks that had caught Sarah's attention earlier. "You're part of the original project," Sarah deduced, watching Dr. Chen work. It wasn't a question. The woman's familiarity with Max and her methodical examination made it clear she had intimate knowledge of whatever experiments had created this unusual pair. "We're what remains of it," James confirmed, his voice low and careful. "The project was never meant to be a weapon. It was about understanding the depths of animal intelligence, about creating bridges between species. But you know how these things go. Someone always sees military potential." As they talked, Dr. Chen shared her observations with Sarah. The marks on Max weren't just surgical scars, they were evidence of a groundbreaking procedure that had enhanced his cognitive abilities. But the true breakthrough had been unexpected, the deep psychological bond that had formed between the wolf and the young girl. "Lily was born into the project," Dr. Chen explained, her voice tinged with both pride and regret. "Her parents were leading researchers. They discovered that young children, with their more plastic neural pathways, could form unprecedented connections with similarly enhanced animals. But Lily and Max, their bond went beyond anything we'd theorized possible." The group moved to the bunker as James kept watch upstairs. Dr. Chen revealed more of the project's history through documents they hadn't yet discovered. The helicopter crash mentioned in the files hadn't been an accident. It had been an escape plan, orchestrated by Lily's parents when they realized they couldn't protect their daughter from those who wanted to weaponize the research. "The crash was meant to obscure their trail," Dr. Chen continued, showing them a hidden compartment containing more detailed records. "Lily's parents knew that she and Max needed to disappear completely. A select few of us have been watching over them ever since, keeping them safe, maintaining this network of shelters." Sarah's scientific curiosity was overwhelming, but her ethical concerns were equally strong. The level of interspecies communication they demonstrate, it's revolutionary. But the implications, the potential for misuse— A sound from above interrupted her thoughts. James appeared at the bunker entrance, his expression tense. "We've got movement in the eastern sector. 3 vehicles, professional gear. They're establishing a search grid." Dr. Chen quickly began gathering specific documents and supplies. "We need to move them to another safe house. We've got a network of them throughout the forest, but we've stayed here too long already." Ethan's ranger knowledge proved invaluable as they discussed escape routes. "There's an old logging trail that doesn't appear on modern maps," he offered. "It connects to a series of caves we could use to throw off any pursuit." As they planned, Lily sat quietly with Max, their subtle interactions painting a picture of just how deep their connection went. The wolf seemed to anticipate her needs before she expressed them, responding to thoughts as much as actions. The radio crackled again, this time with multiple coordinates being exchanged. The search parties were getting closer, their movements suggesting a sophisticated operation. Time was running out, and they needed to make a decision. In the growing darkness, as they prepared for what would come next, Sarah couldn't help but marvel at the situation she found herself in. What had started as a curious wildlife observation had evolved into something that could revolutionize our understanding of consciousness and connection, if they could keep it safe from those who would exploit it. The forest darkness wrapped around them like a protective cloak as the group moved silently through the underbrush. Max led the way, his enhanced senses proving invaluable as they navigated the treacherous terrain. Lily rode on James's shoulders, her small form barely visible in the dim light. Ethan's knowledge of the forest's hidden paths kept them away from the main trails where vehicles could follow. Sarah watched in fascination as Max constantly checked back with Lily, their silent communication guiding the group's movements. The wolf would stop, turn his head slightly, and adjust their course based on some unseen signal from the child. "There's something you need to see," Dr. Chen whispered as they reached a small clearing. It's why we chose this escape route. She pointed to an area of dense vegetation that seemed oddly arranged. As they approached, the outline of something metallic gleamed faintly in their low-powered flashlights. James helped Lily down and began carefully pulling away the overgrowth, revealing the weathered remains of a helicopter. The craft lay broken but largely intact, carefully concealed by years of natural growth and deliberate camouflage. This was the crash site mentioned in the documents, but seeing it in person gave their discoveries a new weight of reality. "This is where it all changed," Dr. Chen explained, her voice thick with emotion. "The night Lily's parents realized they couldn't protect their research or their daughter through official channels. She moved to a compartment that had been seamlessly sealed, opening it with practiced ease to reveal a metal box. Inside the box they found more pieces of the puzzle: research notes, personal journals, and most significantly, a series of photographs showing the progression of the project. Images of Lily as a baby, surrounded by monitoring equipment; Max as a pup, undergoing carefully documented procedures, the gradual development of their extraordinary bond. The neural enhancement was only part of it, Dr. Chen continued, showing Sarah a particularly detailed set of notes. The real breakthrough was something we never expected, an empathic connection that developed spontaneously between them. They don't just communicate, they share consciousness on some level. Ethan spotted something else in the wreckage, a military insignia that had been deliberately obscured. "How high up did this go?" he asked, his ranger training making him acutely aware of the implications. James kept watch while they examined the site, his posture tense. "High enough that when Lily's parents discovered their research was being redirected toward military applications, their only option was to disappear. The crash was meant to look like a tragedy, allowing Lily and Max to vanish into the forest." As they spoke, Lily wandered to a specific spot near the helicopter, Max right beside her. She knelt and began brushing away leaves, revealing a small metal plate embedded in the ground. Her fingers traced the engraved names with familiar ease. Her parents' names, along with a date and a simple message: "For understanding, not control." Sarah watched the girl's interaction with the memorial, noting how Max positioned himself to support her emotionally, his body language shifting to provide comfort rather than protection. The depth of their connection became even more apparent in these quiet moments. The sound of distant vehicles snapped them back to their immediate situation. The search teams were changing their pattern, moving closer to their location. But there was something else. Another presence in the forest, one that Max had already sensed. "We're not alone," James said quietly, scanning the darkness. "But they're not all hostile. Some of the original research team has been watching, waiting for the right moment to help protect what we created." A soft whistling sound carried through the trees, another signal, similar to the knock they'd heard at the cabin. Dr. Chen's expression shifted from concern to relief. "That's Marcus. He was our head of security before everything. He's been coordinating our protective network." The pieces were falling into place, but time was running short. The helicopter site held more secrets, more answers to their questions, but the approaching search teams meant they couldn't linger. As they prepared to move on, Sarah noticed Lily picking up something from the ground, a tattered photograph that had fallen from the metal box. The image showed her parents, smiling proudly in their lab coats, standing next to a younger Dr. Chen. In the background, barely visible but significant, was a complex array of equipment surrounding a small wolf pup, the beginning of a revolution in human-animal connections that now needed to be protected at all costs. The moonlight filtered through the canopy as the group moved away from the helicopter site. Their footsteps were muffled by years of fallen pine needles, but the forest silence was broken by the distant sound of engines growing steadily closer. Max's ears twitched constantly, monitoring every change in their environment. Dr. Chen led them along a carefully planned route, one that had clearly been used before. Small markers, invisible to the untrained eye but obvious to those who knew what to look for, guided their way through the darkness. The path seemed to wind unnecessarily, until Sarah realized they were systematically avoiding any areas that might register on thermal imaging equipment. "There's another safe house 2 miles north," James whispered, checking a compass that seemed more advanced than standard issue. "If we can reach it before—" His words cut off as Max suddenly froze, hackles rising. The wolf's reaction was instantaneous and precise. Without any visible signal from Lily, he moved into a protective stance. A moment later, they all heard it, the unmistakable sound of a round being chambered in a firearm. "Don't move," a voice commanded from the shadows. A figure emerged, holding a rifle with professional confidence. His tactical gear marked him as part of the search team, but something about his demeanor seemed off to Ethan's trained eye. "Doctor." Chen stepped forward slightly, her voice calm but firm. "Lower your weapon. You don't understand what you're interfering with." Her hand moved slowly toward her jacket pocket, where the most crucial research documents were hidden. The man's response was unexpected. "Actually, Doctor, I understand perfectly." He lowered his rifle slightly, revealing a familiar insignia on his sleeve, one that matched symbols in the helicopter's wreckage. "I was there at the beginning. Subject Enhancement Division." Max's behavior shifted subtly. The wolf's aggressive stance remained, but his eyes showed recognition. Lily, who had remained silent, suddenly spoke up. "He was in the White Room," she said softly. "But he was nice. He brought me colored pencils." The man, who introduced himself as Lieutenant Richards, quickly explained his presence. Not everyone involved in the original project wanted it weaponized. "Some of us have been working from the inside, misdirecting searches, planting false leads, but they're getting closer. The main search team has new tracking technology." As if to emphasize his point, the sound of vehicles grew louder. Flashlight beams began to dance through the distant trees. They had minutes at most. Sarah's scientific curiosity warred with the urgency of their situation. "The neural synchronization," she began. "How did you—" "Later," James interrupted, taking charge. "Richards, if you're really on our side, prove it. We need a diversion." The lieutenant nodded, understanding immediately. He pulled out a military-grade radio, different from the one in the cabin. "Watch," he said, then began broadcasting a series of coordinates leading away from their position, his voice carrying the authoritative tone of a team leader. The effect was immediate. The distant flashlight beams changed direction, moving away from their location. The sound of vehicles shifted following the false lead, but their relief was short-lived. A new sound emerged from the darkness, helicopter rotors in the distance. "They're bringing in air support," Richards warned. "The thermal imaging will make forest cover useless. We need to get underground." Dr. Chen exchanged a meaningful look with James. "The tunnel system," she said. "It's risky, but we don't have a choice," James finished. He turned to Ethan and Sarah. "There's a lot you still don't know. The project, it went deeper than anyone realized, literally." As they moved toward what appeared to be a solid rock face, Max and Lily took the lead. The wolf's behavior became even more intriguing to Sarah. He was moving with purpose, as if he knew exactly where they were going. The rock face, she soon discovered, concealed the entrance to an elaborate tunnel system. The group disappeared into the darkness, just as the helicopter's searchlight swept over their previous position. The tunnels promised answers, but as they descended into their depths, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that they were walking into something even more extraordinary than what they'd already discovered. The tunnel system was a marvel of hidden engineering. As they moved deeper underground, motion-activated lights flickered to life, revealing smooth walls reinforced with advanced materials. This was no natural cave system. It had been purposefully designed and expertly concealed. This facility was built long before Project Symphony began, Dr. Chen explained as they walked, her voice echoing slightly in the corridor. "It was originally a contingency shelter, but we repurposed it for research when we realized we needed to protect our work and our subjects." Sarah's attention was divided between examining their surroundings and observing Max and Lily. Even in this artificial environment, their synchronized movements continued. The wolf navigated the tunnels with familiar ease, occasionally stopping at intersections to wait for Lily's subtle signals. "The neural enhancement procedures were just the beginning," Lieutenant Richards explained, matching stride with Sarah. "The real breakthrough came when we discovered that young children, particularly those exposed to the enhanced animals from an early age, developed unprecedented levels of empathic connection. They reached a large chamber that clearly served as a research area. Banks of sophisticated equipment lined the walls, most of it powered down but obviously well maintained. In the center of the room stood what appeared to be a modified medical scanner, its design unlike anything Sarah had seen before. "This is where we first documented the shared consciousness," Dr. Chen said, running her hand along the scanner's surface. Lily was just 3 years old. "We were conducting routine neural mapping when we noticed something extraordinary. Her brainwave patterns were synchronizing with Max's, not just mimicking, but truly synchronizing." James kept watch at the chamber's entrance while Ethan examined the security systems. The Rangers' expertise with the forest above had given them valuable time, but down here in this hidden world of science and secrets, he felt out of his depth. Lily walked to a specific cabinet, opening it with practiced ease to reveal dozens of drawings. Unlike the childish artwork in the cabin, these were different. Detailed sketches showing the neural pathways between her and Max, rendered with an understanding that should have been impossible for a child her age. "She sees what he sees," Richards explained, watching Lily and Max move in perfect coordination. "Feels what he feels. Their consciousness exists in a shared space we're only beginning to understand. That's why they want them back so badly. Imagine the applications if this could be replicated." Dr. Chen's expression hardened. "That's exactly what we were trying to prevent. This connection wasn't meant for control or warfare. It was about understanding the boundaries of consciousness itself, about breaking down the barriers between species." A distant rumble interrupted their conversation. Even underground, they could feel the vibrations of heavy vehicles moving above. The search teams weren't giving up. They were bringing in heavier equipment. "There's something else you need to see, Doctor," Chen said urgently, leading them deeper into the facility. They entered a room filled with monitors displaying data streams that Sarah recognized as neural activity patterns. "This is live data from Lily and Max. The connection isn't just passive, it's growing, evolving. They're developing abilities we never predicted." As if to demonstrate, Lily closed her eyes in concentration. Max moved to a complex control panel and, with extraordinary precision, pressed a specific sequence of buttons with his snout. The security screens came to life, showing them multiple angles of the forest above. "That's impossible," Sarah whispered, her scientific mind struggling to process what she was seeing. "The level of coordination, the shared intelligence—" "Nothing is impossible," Lily said softly, her voice carrying a wisdom far beyond her years. "Mommy and Daddy said we were just the beginning. That understanding comes before progress." The security feeds showed them what they were up against, multiple teams converging on their location, using advanced scanning equipment to search for underground structures. Their sanctuary wouldn't remain secret for long, but as they watched the search teams move through the forest above, something else caught their attention. Other figures moved in the shadows, disrupting search patterns, creating false trails. More allies, part of the network dedicated to protecting Lily and Max. "We're not alone in this," James said, checking his tactical gear. "The question is, can we trust everyone who claims to be on our side?" The underground facility's monitors cast an eerie blue glow across the faces of the group as they watched the complex dance of searchers and protectors playing out in the forest above. Dr. Chen worked quickly at a central computer terminal, downloading critical research data while deleting traces of their presence. "We need to understand who we can actually trust," Ethan said, his ranger instincts on high alert. "How many others from the original project are still out there?" He directed his question to Richards, who had been surprisingly well informed about their operations. The lieutenant's response was measured, careful. The project fractured into 3 groups after the incident. Those who wanted to weaponize the research, those who wanted to protect it, and those who wanted to expose it all. He paused, checking something on his tactical gear. "The problem is, some people played multiple sides." Sarah was examining years of archived data on the neural connection between Lily and Max. The displays showed an exponential growth in their synchronization over time. "This is remarkable," she breathed. "The bond isn't static. It's continuously evolving, becoming stronger and more complex." Lily sat quietly in a corner with Max, both of them watching the adults with eerily similar expressions of careful observation. The wolf's posture shifted slightly, and without any visible signal, Lily spoke. "Someone's coming." Through the east tunnel, James immediately moved to a defensive position, but Dr. Chen raised her hand. "Wait," she said, moving to another monitor. There's only one other person who knows about this section of the facility. The security feed showed a woman moving purposefully through the tunnel system, her lab coat marking her as another scientist. Dr. Martinez, Richard said, recognition in his voice. She was the behavioral specialist. She helped design the initial protocols for measuring the empathic connection. The new arrival entered the room moments later, slightly out of breath but composed. Her presence caused an immediate reaction in both Lily and Max, not fear but recognition tinged with uncertainty. The wolf moved slightly closer to Lily, protective but not aggressive. The search patterns have changed, Dr. Martinez announced without preamble. They're not just looking for Lily and Max anymore. They're hunting for something specific, research data about the second phase of the project. Dr. Chen's hands froze over the keyboard. The expansion protocols, she whispered. They couldn't know about those unless... She turned to face the group, her expression grave. Someone from the inner circle is working with them. Sarah noticed something in Dr. Martinez's behavior. Subtle glances at specific equipment, a slight tension in her movements. Her scientific training had taught her to observe details others might miss. The second phase, she prompted carefully. What exactly were you trying to achieve? The answer came from an unexpected source. Lily stood up, her small hand resting on Max's head. Making more of us, she said simply. Mommy and Daddy said we were just the first step, that others could learn to see through different eyes. Dr. Martinez moved toward one of the lab stations, her movements deliberate. The neural enhancement process wasn't just about creating a connection between one child and one wolf. It was about understanding how to bridge the gap between species on a larger scale. Imagine human consciousness expanded through direct connection with the natural world. The implications were staggering. Sarah's mind raced with the possibilities and the dangers. But in the wrong hands, exactly, James cut in. An army of controllers, able to direct enhanced animals with military precision. The perfect weapons, invisible, lethal, and completely deniable. A new sound echoed through the tunnel system, rhythmic vibrations that suggested heavy equipment was being moved into position above them. The search teams were no longer just searching, they were preparing to excavate. Dr. Martinez reached into her lab coat, pulling out a small device. We don't have much time. This data, she hesitated, looking at Lily and Max. It needs to be protected, but so do they. The tension in the room grew as they realized they faced an impossible choice. The research that could revolutionize human understanding of consciousness and connection was also the research that could create an unprecedented weapon. And somewhere above them, people were getting closer to discovering their hidden sanctuary. The underground facility's emergency lights began to pulse softly, a warning system triggered by the vibrations from above. Dr. Martinez's device, now placed on the central console, projected a holographic display of complex neural patterns, the complete mapping of Lily and Max's shared consciousness. This is what they're really after, Dr. Martinez explained, her fingers moving through the projection to highlight specific areas. Not just the enhancement process, but the complete blueprint of successful synchronization. Lily and Max achieved something we never thought possible, a perfect neural harmony. Sarah watched in fascination as the hologram showed two distinct consciousness patterns slowly merging into one unified field. It's not just communication, she realized. They've developed a shared consciousness that operates as a single entity while maintaining their individual identities. Dr. Chen moved to another console, bringing up additional data. The project's original goal was pure research, understanding the boundaries of consciousness itself. We theorized that children, with their more adaptable neural pathways, might be able to form deeper connections with enhanced animals. But what happened with Lily and Max went far beyond our expectations. Lieutenant Richards kept his attention on the security feeds, watching the methodical movement of equipment above. They're setting up in a grid pattern, he reported. Professional operation, military precision. They'll find us within hours. Lily sat calmly in the center of the room, Max at her side, both watching the holographic display with knowing eyes. Show them, she said softly to Dr. Martinez. Show them what Mommy and Daddy discovered. The scientist hesitated, then nodded, adjusting the device. The hologram shifted, showing a new set of data. brain scans from other children who had been part of the initial research. These were early attempts at replicating Lily and Max's connection, she explained. None were successful. We couldn't understand why until we realized we were looking at it wrong. The connection couldn't be forced, Dr. Chen continued, pulling up more files. It had to develop naturally, organically. Lily and Max formed their bond before we even began the enhancement procedures. The technology only amplified what was already there. Sarah's scientific mind raced with the implications. You're saying the technology isn't the key, it's the relationship itself. The emotional connection? James moved away from his position by the door, his expression troubled. That's why they can't replicate it. They're trying to create weapons, tools to be controlled. But real consciousness sharing can't be forced or controlled. It has to be built on love, Lily finished simply, her hand buried in Max's fur. The wolf's eyes, intelligent and aware, seemed to reflect the same profound understanding. The facility's vibration sensors spiked again, more urgently this time. On the security feeds, they could see heavy drilling equipment being moved into position. The search teams above were done looking for hidden entrances. They were going to dig their way in. Dr. Martinez quickly began transferring data to secure drives. We need to move everything, not just the research, but the evidence of what they're trying to do with it. The world needs to understand what's really at stake here. As if in response to the growing tension, Max suddenly lifted his head, his ears twitching. Through their connection, Lily understood immediately. Others are coming, she announced. Through the old tunnels, the ones Mommy and Daddy used. Dr. Chen's eyes widened. The emergency evacuation route. But those tunnels were sealed after... She turned to the security feeds, checking cameras that covered older sections of the facility. The footage showed several figures moving with purpose through supposedly abandoned corridors. They're wearing the old project uniforms, Richards observed, squinting at the grainy images. But something's not right about their movement patterns. The group faced a critical decision point. The approaches from above and below meant they were potentially being surrounded. Yet within this pressure, Lily remained eerily calm, as if she and Max understood something the others had yet to grasp. There's something else, the child said, her voice carrying that unsettling maturity. Something Mommy and Daddy left for us. Something that will make everyone understand why this can't be turned into a weapon. She stood, moving with Max toward a section of wall that appeared completely ordinary. The wolf pressed his nose against a specific point, and a hidden panel slid silently open, revealing a truth that would change everything they thought they knew about Project Symphony. The hidden panel revealed a small chamber bathed in soft blue light. Inside, arranged with meticulous care, were dozens of data crystals and a sophisticated holographic projector, unlike anything Sarah had seen before. But it was the handwritten journal placed carefully in the center that drew everyone's attention. "Mom's diary," Lily whispered, reaching for the worn leather book. Max moved with her, his body language suggesting he remembered this place, these objects. The wolf's behavior continued to amaze Sarah. His movements weren't just protective, but purposeful, as if he shared Lily's memories of this hidden sanctuary. Dr. Chen carefully lifted one of the data crystals, her hands trembling slightly. "These contain the complete unredacted research files," she breathed. "Elizabeth and Michael didn't destroy their work. They protected it. They knew someday we'd need to understand the whole truth." Lieutenant Richards kept watch at the entrance, while Dr. Martinez quickly set up the holographic projector. As it hummed to life, a familiar face appeared. Lily's mother, Elizabeth, looking tired but determined. The timestamp showed this recording was made just days before the helicopter incident. "If you're seeing this," the hologram began, "then you've discovered what Project Symphony truly achieved. Our daughter and Max aren't just connected, they're the first example of true interspecies consciousness sharing, but more importantly, they've shown us that this ability lies dormant in all of us." The group watched in stunned silence as Elizabeth's hologram continued, explaining how Lily and Max's connection had revealed something extraordinary about human consciousness itself. The project hadn't created their ability. It had merely awakened what was already there, a potential that existed in all living beings. "The military application they're seeking is impossible," Elizabeth's recording continued. "You can't weaponize this connection because it's based on empathy, on mutual understanding. The more they try to control it, the more it slips away. That's what makes Lily and Max so special. They found each other naturally, formed their bond through love and trust. Sarah's scientific mind was racing. That's why they can't replicate the results, she realized. They're trying to force something that has to develop organically. It's not about the technology at all. Dr. Martinez nodded, her expression thoughtful. The enhancement procedures only amplified their natural connection. We've been looking at it backward all this time. The technology isn't the breakthrough. It's just a tool to reveal what's already possible. The vibrations from above grew stronger, but now they could also hear movement in the old tunnels below. They were running out of time, but Lily seemed unconcerned. She sat with the journal in her lap, Max at her side, both of them watching the hologram with profound understanding. "There's more," Lily said softly, turning pages in her mother's journal. "Show them, Max." The wolf moved to another panel, pressing specific points in a sequence that seemed rehearsed. A second chamber opened, revealing something that made even Dr. Chen gasp. Inside were detailed maps of a network that spread far beyond the forest. Other facilities, other researchers who had discovered similar connections between humans and animals. Project Symphony wasn't isolated. It was part of a larger awakening, a growing understanding of the profound connections possible between species. "Your parents weren't just protecting you," Dr. Chen said to Lily, her voice filled with wonder. "They were protecting the discovery that could change how humanity sees itself and its relationship with the natural world." The security feeds showed the search teams getting closer, their drilling equipment now positioned directly above key sections of the facility. But the monitors also showed movement in other tunnels, figures moving with purpose, wearing symbols that matched those in Elizabeth's research notes. "The network," James breathed. "It's not just about protecting Lily and Max anymore. It's about protecting the truth, that we're all capable of these connections if we approach them with understanding instead of control." Lieutenant Richards checked his tactical display, his expression grave. "We have maybe 20 minutes before they breach the upper levels. Whatever we're going to do with this information, we need to decide now." In the midst of this tension, Lily stood up, her small hand resting on Max's head. Through their connection, they seemed to reach a decision together. "Mom and Dad left us a way out," she said with quiet confidence. "But first, they wanted everyone to understand why this can't be hidden anymore." She turned to the final pages of the journal, revealing a set of coordinates and instructions that suggested Elizabeth and Michael had prepared for this moment long ago. Their legacy wasn't just about protecting their daughter and her unique bond with Max. It was about sharing a truth that could fundamentally change humanity's understanding of consciousness itself. The final pages of Elizabeth's journal revealed an intricate plan, one that had been set in motion years ago when she and Michael first realized the true implications of their discovery. Dr. Chen studied the coordinates with growing understanding, her fingers tracing the carefully drawn maps. "They didn't just create a network to protect Lily and Max," she explained, her voice filled with admiration. "They created a pathway to bring the truth to light when the time was right." Sarah examined the scientific data that accompanied Elizabeth's final entries. The neural mapping showed something extraordinary. The connection between Lily and Max wasn't just growing stronger, it was becoming more refined, more precise. Their shared consciousness had evolved into something that defied conventional understanding. "Look at these patterns," she said, pointing to the complex neural interfaces displayed on the screens. The synchronization isn't just maintaining itself, it's teaching them both how to expand their awareness even further. Lieutenant Richards monitored the security feeds with growing concern. The drilling from above had reached a critical point, and the movement in the lower tunnels was becoming more organized. "Whatever we're going to do, we need to do it now. We're about to have company from both directions." Dr. Martinez worked quickly at the main computer terminal, her fingers flying over the keys. "Elizabeth left us everything we need: research data, proof of the military's attempts to weaponize the discovery, and most importantly, evidence of what's really possible when we approach this connection with understanding instead of control." Lily sat quietly with Max, both of them watching the adults with that uncanny shared awareness. The wolf's posture shifted slightly, and Lily spoke, giving voice to their joint understanding. "Mom and Dad knew this would happen. They left us a choice: hide the truth to keep it safe, or share it to protect it. James moved from his position by the door, his tactical experience lending weight to his words. If we reveal everything, we expose Lily and Max to the world. The attention, the scrutiny, they'll never have a normal life. They already don't have a normal life, Dr. Chen countered, gesturing to the remarkable bond between child and wolf. But they have something extraordinary, something that could help humanity understand itself better. The facility's sensors detected more vibrations, this time from multiple directions. The search teams above had begun their final approach, while the movements in the lower tunnels suggested organized groups converging on their location. Dr. Martinez finished her work at the terminal, turning to face the group. Elizabeth's plan isn't just about revealing the research, it's about demonstrating it. Live undeniable proof of what's possible when we open ourselves to deeper connections with other species. Sarah watched as Lily and Max moved in perfect synchronization toward the center of the room. The child's expression held that same ancient wisdom they'd seen before, while the wolf's eyes reflected an intelligence that went far beyond enhanced animal consciousness. "Show them," Lily said simply, and Max moved to a specific panel, pressing a sequence that activated a hidden system. The facility's lights shifted, and new displays came to life, showing connections to media outlets, scientific institutions, and environmental organizations worldwide. "Your mother set up a dead man's switch," Dr. Chen realized, examining the system. If anything happened to them, all of this would eventually come to light. But they left the final choice to you, Lily, to both of you. The choice before them was momentous: reveal everything and change the world's understanding of consciousness forever, or maintain the secrecy that had protected this discovery for so long. The drilling from above grew louder, and the movement in the tunnels below suggested they had minutes at most to decide. In this moment of crisis, Lily and Max demonstrated once again why their connection was so remarkable. Without words, without obvious signals, they moved together to the central console. Their synchronized movements showed absolute certainty, absolute trust in each other, and in the decision they had reached together. "Mom and Dad always said that understanding comes before progress," Lily said, her hand hovering over the final activation sequence. "They wanted everyone to know what's possible, not just for me and Max, but for all of us." The facility trembled with the approaching forces, but in the center of the room, a child and a wolf stood ready to change the world's understanding of consciousness itself. Their choice would ripple through time, affecting not just their own future, but humanity's relationship with the natural world forever. The moment Lily's hand touched the console, the facility's systems hummed to life with renewed purpose. Screens lit up across the room, showing connections being established with scientific institutions, media outlets, and research centers worldwide. Elizabeth's dead man's switch hadn't just preserved the data, it had created a network ready to share the truth with the entire world. "The upload is beginning," Dr. Martinez announced, watching as decades of research, carefully protected and preserved, began streaming to secure servers across the globe. "Once this starts, there's no going back. The truth about Project Symphony will be impossible to suppress." Sarah stood transfixed as she watched the data flow. The neural mapping sequences, the documented growth of Lily and Max's connection, the failed attempts to replicate their bond through forced means, all of it painting a picture that would revolutionize humanity's understanding of consciousness itself. "Look at this," she breathed, pointing to one of the screens. Elizabeth didn't just document the research, she created a framework for understanding it. She wanted to make sure the world would see this as a beginning, not just a scientific curiosity. The vibrations from above had reached a critical point. Dust fell from the ceiling as the drilling equipment moved closer to breaching their sanctuary. In the tunnels below, the movement of multiple groups had become more coordinated, more purposeful. Lieutenant Richards checked his tactical display one last time. "We've got 5 minutes, maybe less, before they break through. Whatever happens next, we need to be ready." But Lily and Max remained calm in the center of the storm. Their shared consciousness seemed to give them a perspective the others couldn't fully grasp. Through their bond, they understood something about this moment that went beyond the immediate crisis. Dr. Chen worked quickly at another terminal, bringing up Elizabeth's final protocols. "She thought of everything," she said with growing amazement. The data isn't just being shared, it's being presented in a way that makes its implications impossible to ignore. The facility's screens showed the impact beginning to ripple outward. Scientific communities across the globe were receiving the data, and the first responses were starting to come in. Disbelief gave way to wonder as the evidence mounted. Documented proof of consciousness sharing between species, achieved not through control, but through understanding. James moved to secure the entrance as the vibrations intensified. "They're almost through," he reported, "but something's changed in the lower tunnels, the movement patterns. They're not aggressive anymore." Dr. Martinez checked the security feeds and smiled. "They're not here to stop us," she realized. "They're here to witness this. The network Elizabeth and Michael built, it's bigger than we imagined." The screens showed more connections being established. Universities, research centers, environmental organizations, all receiving proof that humanity's relationship with the natural world could be fundamentally different than anyone had imagined. The truth of Project Symphony was spreading like ripples in a pond, each wave carrying the message further. Lily and Max moved together through the room, their synchronized movements drawing everyone's attention. The wolf's enhanced intelligence and the child's natural empathy had created something unprecedented, a bridge between species that pointed toward humanity's potential future. "Mum and Dad knew this would change everything," Lily said softly, her hand buried in Max's fur. "Not just for us, but for everyone who's ready to understand." The facility shook with one final massive vibration, but the expected breach didn't come. Instead, the security feeds showed the drilling equipment being withdrawn. In the tunnels below, the mysterious figures had begun to emerge from the shadows, revealing themselves as members of the original research team, ones who had maintained their belief in the project's true purpose. Sarah watched in amazement as new data continued to flow across the screens. Elizabeth's research wasn't just about one remarkable connection between a child and a wolf. It was about awakening humanity to its own untapped potential for deeper understanding and connection with all living beings. "They're standing down," Lieutenant Richards reported, checking the tactical feeds. "The search teams, they're receiving the data too. They can't stop what's already begun." In the center of the facility, surrounded by screens showing their story spreading across the globe, Lily and Max stood as living proof of what was possible. Their bond, once hidden to protect them, now served as a beacon of hope for a future where understanding between species wasn't just a dream, but a scientific reality. The hours that followed the worldwide release of Project Symphony's data were unlike anything Sarah had ever experienced. The facility's screens displayed reactions pouring in from every corner of the globe, scientists, researchers, and environmental experts all struggling to process the implications of what they were seeing. "The response is overwhelming," Dr. Chen said, monitoring the incoming messages. "Research institutions are already requesting access to the experimental protocols, not to replicate the enhancement procedures, but to understand the natural foundations of the bond." In the central chamber, now serving as an impromptu command center, Lily and Max remained the calm eye of the storm. Their presence served as living proof of everything the data suggested, that consciousness could bridge the gap between species through understanding and empathy rather than control. Lieutenant Richards, who had maintained his vigilant watch, reported a complete change in the situation above ground. "The search teams have withdrawn completely," he announced. "They're being overwhelmed by media inquiries. The story's too big to contain now." Dr. Martinez worked steadily at her station, organizing the flood of incoming communications. "Elizabeth's network is even more extensive than we realized," she explained. "Environmental groups, animal behavior specialists, consciousness researchers, they're all reaching out, offering support and protection." Sarah found herself drawn to the technical data, her scientific mind racing with the possibilities. "Look at these neural patterns," she said, pointing to one of the displays. "The synchronization between Lily and Max isn't just maintaining itself. It's suggesting possibilities for whole new fields of research in consciousness studies." James, who had been monitoring the security feeds, noticed something remarkable. "The forest," he said, calling everyone's attention to the exterior cameras. "Look at how the other animals are responding." The footage showed wolves, deer, and various forest creatures gathering in the area above the facility. Their behavior was unusual, not aggressive or frightened, but curious, almost expectant. Through their enhanced connection, Lily and Max seemed to understand something about this gathering that the others couldn't grasp. "They know," Lily said simply, her hand resting on Max's head. "They've always known what's possible. They were just waiting for us to understand, too." Dr. Chen pulled up more incoming data on the main screen. Universities worldwide were already establishing research programs dedicated to studying interspecies consciousness. But unlike the military's attempts to weaponize the discovery, these initiatives focused on understanding and nurturing natural connections. "Your parents' legacy is secure," Dr. Martinez told Lily, her voice full of emotion. "They wanted to protect you both, but they also wanted to protect the possibility of what you represent, a future where humans and animals could truly understand each other." The facility's systems continued to process and distribute data, but the atmosphere had changed. The urgency of escape had been replaced by a sense of purpose, of witnessing the beginning of something extraordinary. Sarah watched as Lily and Max moved through the room, their synchronized movements drawing everyone's attention. The wolf's enhanced intelligence and the child's natural empathy had created something unprecedented, a bridge between species that pointed toward humanity's potential future. "The question now," James said, voicing what everyone was thinking, "is what comes next? The world knows about Project Symphony. They know about Lily and Max. Everything changes from here." "Doctor," Chen smiled, pulling up Elizabeth's final research notes. "That's exactly what Elizabeth and Michael were preparing for. This isn't just about revealing the truth. It's about guiding humanity toward a new understanding of its place in the natural world." Lieutenant Richards, who had once been part of the effort to control this discovery, now stood watch with a different purpose. "We're not just protecting a secret anymore," he realized. "We're protecting a possibility, the possibility of real understanding between species." As the sun began to rise above the forest, its light filtering down through hidden vents into the facility, Lily and Max stood together at the center of a revolution in human consciousness. Their bond, once hidden to protect them, now served as a beacon of hope for a future where the barriers between species could finally begin to fall. The world above had transformed in ways no one could have predicted. A week after Project Symphony's revelation, the forest surrounding the facility had become a gathering point for scientists, researchers, and consciousness experts from around the globe. But thanks to Elizabeth's careful planning, Lily and Max remained protected from the chaos of public attention. "Your mother created a perfect balance, Doctor," Chen explained to Lily as they watched the activity on the security monitors. "The world can learn from your connection without interfering with it. She made sure you'd be safe while still helping others understand." The facility had been transformed into a research and education center, with Elizabeth's network of trusted colleagues managing the flood of interest from the scientific community. Sarah found herself at the heart of this transformation, helping to translate the complex data into understanding that could benefit humanity's relationship with the natural world. "The neural patterns we're observing are revolutionary," she explained to a group of visiting neuroscientists via secure video link. "The connection between Lily and Max shows us that consciousness isn't limited by species. It's limited by our own preconceptions about what's possible." Lieutenant Richards, who had chosen to stay on as head of security, maintained a protective perimeter around the facility. But the atmosphere had changed completely. Instead of hiding from searchers, they were now fielding requests from research institutions and environmental groups eager to learn from Project Symphony's discoveries. "The military teams have completely withdrawn," he reported during their morning briefing. "The public exposure has made any attempt to control this impossible. Instead, they're requesting to be part of the research into peaceful applications." Dr. Martinez worked tirelessly to organize the incoming data from researchers worldwide who had begun to document similar, though less developed, connections between humans and animals. "It's happening everywhere," she said, showing them the growing database. Once people understood what to look for, they started finding evidence of these bonds in all sorts of places. Lily and Max continued their daily routines, but now their activities were helping to advance understanding of interspecies consciousness. Their synchronized movements, their silent communication, their shared awareness, all of it carefully documented and studied, but never interfered with. Mom and Dad always said that understanding has to grow naturally, Lily explained to Sarah one morning as they watched Max interact with a group of wolves that had gathered at the forest's edge. You can't force it. You have to let it develop on its own. James, who had taken on the role of public liaison, managed the growing interest from environmental organizations. This isn't just changing how we see animal consciousness, he observed. It's changing how we see ourselves in relation to the natural world. The facility's screens displayed projects sprouting up around the globe, wildlife preserves establishing communication research centers, universities developing programs to study natural human-animal bonds, environmental groups using the new understanding to strengthen conservation efforts. Dr. Chen spent hours in the archive room, organizing Elizabeth and Michael's research for future generations. They didn't just document a scientific breakthrough, she said, handling the journals with care. They created a roadmap for humanity to reconnect with the natural world. As the sun set over the forest each evening, Lily and Max would sit together on a viewing platform near the facility's hidden entrance. Their presence attracted wildlife from throughout the forest, not just wolves but deer, birds and other creatures, all gathering in peaceful proximity. They're not afraid anymore, Lily explained to Sarah, who watched in amazement. They know we're learning to understand them, really understand them, not just study them. Through the facility's communication network, similar reports began coming in from around the world. Places where humans and animals had begun to develop new ways of interacting, of understanding each other. Project Symphony's revelation had sparked a quiet revolution in consciousness studies. Lieutenant Richards, standing watch over one of these evening gatherings, smiled at the irony. "We spent so much time trying to control this discovery," he said to Sarah. But its real power was in letting go of control, in learning to listen and understand instead. As night fell over the forest, the facility hummed with potential. Screens displayed data from new research initiatives, communications from Elizabeth's network of colleagues, and evidence of growing understanding between species worldwide. In the center of it all, a child and a wolf continued to show the way forward. Their bond, a living example of what was possible when barriers between consciousness fell away. 1 month after Project Symphony's revelation to the world, the hidden facility had evolved into something Elizabeth and Michael could only have dreamed of. Their careful planning had created not just a sanctuary for Lily and Max, but a beacon of hope for humanity's relationship with the natural world. The morning sun filtered through the redesigned observation dome, where Sarah sat reviewing the latest data from research centers worldwide. The results were beyond anything she could have imagined when she first received Ethan's call about an unusual wolf in the forest. "We're seeing similar patterns emerging everywhere," Dr. Chen explained, showing her the latest reports. Not as developed as Lily and Max's connection, but clear evidence that these bonds can form naturally when we create the right conditions for understanding. Lily and Max had settled into a new routine that balanced their private bond with their role in advancing interspecies communication research. Their daily interactions were studied from a respectful distance, providing insights that helped others understand the potential for deeper connections with the natural world. "Your parents would be proud," Dr. Martinez told Lily as they watched Max leading a small pack of wolves through a series of complex interactions. "You're helping people understand exactly what they hope to show the world, that consciousness knows no boundaries when approached with love and respect." Lieutenant Richards, who had transformed from potential adversary to dedicated protector, maintained the sanctuary's security with a new purpose. "We're not just guarding individuals anymore," he explained to his team. "We're protecting the possibility of a different future, one where understanding replaces control." The facility's communication center buzzed with activity as research results poured in from around the globe. Universities reported success in documenting nascent human-animal bonds. Wildlife preserves shared stories of unprecedented peaceful interactions between species. Environmental projects found new ways to protect habitats based on deeper understanding of animal consciousness. James, coordinating with Elizabeth's network, helped manage the growing global interest while protecting Lily and Max's privacy. "It's amazing how quickly people's perspectives can change when they're shown what's possible," he observed, watching the latest public response data. Ethan, who still patrolled the forest, but now as part of a larger conservation effort, reported that the entire ecosystem seemed to be shifting. It's like the animals sense the change in how we're approaching them, he said. They're more willing to interact, to share their space with us. Dr. Chen spent her evenings organizing the continuing research, ensuring that every new discovery built upon Elizabeth and Michael's foundation. Their work was never just about one remarkable bond, she explained. It was about awakening humanity to its own potential for connection with all living beings. As twilight approached, Lily and Max sat together on their favorite observation platform. Below them, the forest teemed with life. Wolves, deer, birds, and other creatures gathering in peaceful proximity. Their unprecedented harmony served as living proof of what Project Symphony had revealed about consciousness and connection. Mom and Dad always said that understanding comes in waves, Lily mused, her hand resting gently on Max's head. First one person understands, then another, until suddenly the whole world sees things differently. Sarah, watching them from nearby, realized that this was just the beginning. The revelation of Project Symphony hadn't just changed scientific understanding. It had opened a door to a future where humans could redefine their relationship with the natural world. The facility's screens continued to display incoming data, each new report adding to humanity's growing understanding of consciousness and connection. But the most powerful evidence wasn't in the data or the research. It was in the simple, profound bond between a child and a wolf, showing the world what was possible when barriers of understanding fell away. As night settled over the forest, the stars visible through the observation dome seemed to shine with new possibility. The legacy of Project Symphony would continue to ripple outward, touching lives and changing perspectives across the globe. In the end, Elizabeth and Michael's greatest gift hadn't been their scientific breakthrough. It had been their vision of a world where understanding between species wasn't just a dream, but a reality waiting to be embraced. Dear listeners, we hope the extraordinary journey of Lily and Max has touched your hearts and opened your minds to new possibilities. This tale of understanding, connection, and hope reminds us that the bonds we forge can transcend all barriers. To continue exploring such transformative stories, find our special playlist by clicking the link to your left. If this story moved you, please subscribe to our channel and give this video a like. Every day we bring you unique narratives that challenge our perspectives and expand our understanding of the world around us. Share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. We'd love to hear how this story resonated with you. Don't miss our upcoming content as we continue to explore the extraordinary possibilities that exist when we open our hearts to understanding.